Hello, everybody. Good morning to you. Ali Duzette here. And today I am joined with my good friend, Naomi Fox-Reyna, who runs elixology.com. And she teaches a God-centric astrology certification program that is highly recommended. But today we have some interesting stuff to talk about. Today we wanted to talk about the cycles of life and how eclipses play into that. So Naomi, why don't you get us started?
Okay, thank you so much, Ali. I always love coming on your channel. Like, I love your audience, all of that. So, the cycles of life is something that you and I personally talk about a lot. And I feel like that has been one of the biggest things that's awakened for me in really understanding astrology. Is it's really helpful to know the personality aspects of it and like just kind of understanding your own internal wiring. And as you master the natal chart, you can really kind of move into understanding transits and how the planets are moving and whatnot. And like, oh, when the moon goes across Uranus every single month of your own, like you can have a little shakeup and you start to see these pieces fit together and you start to see, oh, my solar return, my birthday is a big deal. You have concepts for how the dimensions kind of move. But then from there, as you keep going, you see that there's these huge cycles of life. Like Jupiter makes a full transit around about every 12 years. So about every 12 years, you have like this massive just outpouring of blessings and like you have these different cycles, and Saturn is about every 28 to 30 years. And so you have these big, like ominous, intense cycles. And so you start to see the world in patterns and cycles when you really understand the God placed planetary movements, like the 7-year itch in marriages. That's a Saturn cycle because Saturn takes about 28 years. So about 7 years into the marriage, Saturn has now squared the point from when you're married. So I hear things differently now when people are like, oh yeah, this happened. And then, 12 years later or 7 years later, you hear these things. With eclipses, these are incredibly powerful. And I love how you educate people to let them know eclipses happen all the time. They're twice a year. You'll have a cluster of 2 or 3 twice a year ever since you've been born. This is not some totally new thing. It's significant when we can visually see it. And this one coming up is very significant. But because they're eclipses because of the nodal path, which you do a beautiful job explaining as well, that puts them on 18-month cycles, as well as 9-year cycles, as well as 18-year cycles. So we have all of these different cycles that come in with eclipses. And so I would love to just chat about like what that means for people. Like, how can this actually apply to your life? Because it's one thing to talk about it, but what everybody wants to know is, great, what does that mean? And what do I do with that?
Thank you so much. And I want to clarify for people that might not be aware, when she's talking about the natal chart, she's talking about the moment that you were born, you took your first breath, the arrangement of the planets in the night sky at that moment, we call that your natal chart. And it is special and unique to you. And it kind of acts as like a map for your life, a mirror for your life, for your whole life. And so that's what she's talking about with that. And then the transits are, when you took your first breath, it was a special moment. And we count that moment as really important. But then the planets kept moving because we live inside of a clock. And so the transits are, where are the planets right this minute and where are they going on this clock? And then how is that interacting with that original arrangement of planets that's unique to you? So Naomi talked about the fact that all eclipses are on an 18-month cycle and an 18-year cycle. Okay. And so everything that's going to be happening during this 18-month period, here, I'll show you on my screen. Okay. This is a map of this upcoming eclipse. And part of what makes it an eclipse is this horseshoe and that horseshoe, which are called the north node and the south node. And those nodes are mathematical points. You can't look at them in space, but they take 18 months to cross each sign, which on this map are the different colors on the outside. So right now, these two guys are in this red and teal section, Aries and Libra, and they are there for a total of 18 months. And then at the end of that 18 months, they are going to go into Pisces and Virgo. And then after that 18 months, they'll come here to Aquarius and Libra. And it's going to take them 18 years to come back to where they are right now. And that is why we're talking about an 18-year cycle. And it's also why we're talking about an 18-month cycle. The stuff that's going to happen in between the two eclipses coming up on March 25th and April 8th. We have a lunar eclipse first and then a solar eclipse. That 2-week window is going to be kind of symbolic or representative of this whole 18-month period where the nodes are in Aries and Libra. And so we have a lot of opportunity to learn a bunch of stuff, 18 months worth of life lessons in this 2-week period. But that 2-week period is also linked to the next time this is going to happen 18 years from now and from the time it happened 18 years ago. So one thing that can sometimes be helpful is to think about what was happening 18 years ago for me. What are the things that I want to see unfolding in my life 18 years from now? Okay, turning it back over to you, Naomi.
I love all of that. You do such a beautiful job explaining it. And it's so true because as you're looking through, one of the things that really struck me as I started to dive deeper into astrology is, okay, so we've got this is happening. Is it like at 21 degrees of Aries? I can't
Eclipse?
remember. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's at 19 degrees.
19 degrees. Thank you. There's a lot of numbers on there. And I was like, oh, I didn't capture that. So it's at 19 degrees of Aries. And so this is a significant event. It's a kind of another snapshot, not nearly as important for you as your own natal chart, but it's a snapshot of an event, right? And so you can look and see and be like, okay, is there anything significant in your chart, in your natal chart at 19 degrees of Aries? And also, have there been any other significant astrological events that have happened at 19 degrees of Aries for you in the past? Because, and you probably have no idea. I mean, unless you've been meticulously tracking things you don't know. And so this is where we come into some level of surrender, of just accepting that there's a lot happening that we are not keenly aware of, but we can sink into our intuition. And we can let that kind of guide us and roll us through, where if there was something like, say there was a full moon that happened at 19 degrees of Aries when you were like 10 years old, that was really significant for you for some reason, or there was some other significant thing that happened, that energy will be called up now. And also the energy of where the nodes were 18 years ago at like around that eclipse season, those eclipses that happened 18 years ago in Aries will also, that energy is closing a cycle and opening a new cycle. So we're always in this evolution. There's always this rebirth and this death with everything in life. And we see that so beautifully portrayed in astrology. And so just like, I understand that this isn't really a comprehensive outlook, but just kind of an overview of the concept of like, there's so much more going on here than just the moment, than just April 8th, than just what you see in your map right now. And so if you're having feelings come up from things like, or memories from things that happened almost 2 decades ago, perhaps this is the energy that's ushering it in. We know, those of us that have been in the healing journey for a while, we know that as we go, it's a spiral, right? And as we go and we're like, I healed from this thing. And then we come back around and we're like, why am I yelling at my kids again? Or why am I struggling with this thing again? Like, I did deal with this and it's real and it's valid. You did heal, but you come around and it goes deeper and deeper. That's what we see too, is that as this energy comes back around, we may have conquered a certain problem, overeating, choices in partners, or whatever it is. Like, we may have really, really come far, but then these cycles come back around and kind of serve us up the same energy and say, how are you going to choose this time? And it's not that you're failing, and it's not that you did anything wrong. It's just another opportunity. You could see it as like a test, but I don't really see the universe that way. I see it more as like, here you go, love. Like, what are you going to do with it this time? And like, I just see the universe being so loving and being like, let's go. Like, you're learning and you're growing, and this soul development is this big, long, eternal thing. And so when we have these huge events, it is more potent because you're dealing with soul growth, because you're dealing with this soul path, which is the nodal path. These are soul growth events, as opposed to things that just kind of help our minds to be more clear, or our bodies, which are important. But eclipses are so vital and have all the messages because they're talking about the soul path.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I mentioned in a previous video that how eclipses work, the moon is coming between the earth and the sun, or the earth comes between the sun and the moon, and it causes these little disruptions. And my understanding is that when those things happen, it kind of opens up our whole soul, basically, like on an energy level. We just open right up, and we have this capability to receive all these divine downloads and all these things, the whole universe is conspiring and for our good, serving us up these opportunities to show us, like, how far did we really learn this lesson? How much did we really comprehend about this? Are we really moving forward, or maybe is there some more work we have to do in this particular area of our lives? One thing that I want to mention, which you did mention, but just to like double down on it, is that studying these things and like looking at the charts and really digging in can be really helpful. And also, it can be overwhelming and stressful, and you can really get yourself into like quite a tizzy, especially if you don't have like a teacher that's like walking you through it. The most important thing is always just connecting with God. You don't have to
Yes.
understand a star
Yes.
chart to get a lot out of an eclipse. All you have to do is make sure that every day you're connecting with our creator and saying, okay, God, what do you want me to do today? And then you just do it. It really is easy. You really don't have to be like digging into the minutia of the numbers and the geometry. All you have to do is say, am I doing the right thing today? Did I talk to God today? Am I feeling good about the choices that I'm making today? Like, that's it. It really can be like
100%.
very easy.
Absolutely. Yes. And just, I feel like having the broad strokes can help just to be like that other mental thing to kind of play with, to be like, I understand that there's more going on here than I'm aware of. Like, it's another way of being like, I realize that there's a lot that I don't know, is kind of how I feel. Like, I know there's so much about even just the subject of astrology that I'm still learning. And I know enough of astrology to know that there's so much more that I could study for another 50 years and still have things to learn, which is beautiful. But the visual that I get with these cycles is, it's almost like if you were led into a room and you were like, okay, clean this room. And you're like, okay, so I'm going to clean this room and I'm going to organize. I'm going to take out the stuff that doesn't belong and I'm going to put the stuff where it needs to go. And by the time you're done, like the room looks great. And you're like, oh, I'm so pleased. And then after a little while, you come and they're like, open a new room. And they're like, okay, now organize this room. It's like you only have access to the things that you have access to when you're going through a struggle. But as the energy governs us, it's like new doors open up and it's like, oh, and now you have new layers that you get to sort through that you literally didn't have access to before. You did heal through that thing. You did overcome that struggle. And now you have new things that feel kind of the same. You're like, I already organized a room. I already organized 10 rooms. Like, why do I need to keep going? You're literally going through new stuff that might feel the same. It might look the same, but everything is being productive. Everything is taking you to that growth that your soul was like, I want to do this thing. I want to grow in this way. And so it can help, I think, with the common, I see this common underlying problem of like feeling hopeless or feeling like things are just really overwhelming or kind of crushing. To see that perspective, it's like there is so much productivity. And if you could see with your spiritual eyes what was actually going on, you would be like, I'm doing amazing. And you would just know it.
Thank you so much. And I want to verify that and like add to it that as you know, being able to kind of see the human energy field and like what's going on with the physical body during these kinds of things, even those times that we feel like we're being lazy or like we're just too fatigued to even get off the couch, or we feel like we're not doing anything, our physical bodies are physically metabolizing our spiritual experiences. And if all you can do is sit on a couch and breathe and like drink some water or something, like you are doing a great job. Like you should pat yourself on the back. We are all making progress, whether or not we feel like we're making progress, which is a whole other thing. If you can learn to trust, like, no, you are making progress. Even if what you feel like all you're doing is breathing or sleeping or resting, like that is extremely powerful. I believe that one reason why we're all here on earth is just to have a physical body and have an embodied experience. And if all you do is have that experience and experience what it is to be inside of a body, like that is a huge big deal. Even if you don't write 25 books and run a marathon and like do the thing and build your business, like if all you do is show up and breathe and be present in your own body,
Yes.
you're doing great. I'm really proud of you.
Totally, totally agree. I love it.
Cool. Well, okay, coming back to this cycles concept, um, any practical thoughts that you have on how we can get the most out of this 18-month cycle with this upcoming eclipse and this 18-year cycle? What would you recommend?
So what I typically do when I want to approach like this cycles work with astrology is you kind of just acknowledge like it's about 18 years ago, or me specifically, I will look up exactly when like the nodes were at this point or when the eclipse was in Aries season back 18 years ago. Like I would kind of gauge that. And you just kind of spend some time, not a lot. Don't go down rabbit holes unless that feels right for you, but just kind of sit and kind of connect to that point in time and be like, what was I doing? What was I feeling? Is there anything here for me to learn from, meditate on, take from? This might be a 2-minute exercise, and it might be something you're like, whoa, I uncovered this, all these layers. But it's only meant to be something that serves us. This isn't like another to-do thing. If you're like, I don't have time for that, or this is overwhelming, don't do it. Like just let whatever part of this conversation serves you do it. But there's been so many times where I've gone back and I've traced the cycles of things where I'm like, oh, and it feels like that click, like all of a sudden it's like, I understand now. And I have more compassion for myself, more grace for the process, more understanding, more praising of God for the divine purposes of my life and just how everything goes. And I realize how much I'm not in control and how the divine timing of our life is so perfect.
Yes. Thank you so, so, so much. Um, okay. I think the last thing that I was thinking about is just for 18 years in the future, I think it might be worth our time this time around to spend 5 minutes writing down 18 years from now, how old will I be? What are 10 things I'd like to see then? And just
Yeah.
leave it. Just write it
Yeah.
down and just like throw it out the window or like put it in your journal. Like, who cares? It's not important to meditate on this every day, but just to like spend 5 seconds using your powerful brain to envision the things that you would like to see and then
Love
just
it.
let it go.
That's beautiful. That's
Oh,
really powerful.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave Naomi's link below. She teaches amazing classes about astrology, and you should definitely check them out. I'm also going to recommend that if anybody hasn't done the foundational sessions at allyduzetclasses.com, go do those. Go do them today. Get started with them today. They are free. All you have to do is like put in your email and like you're in. I'll put the link for that down below as well. But working through those sessions before this eclipse portal starts on March 24th, on March 25th is going to be very highly recommended. Your eclipse experience is going to be vastly improved if you go work through those free sessions. So thank you so much for being here, Naomi. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Allie.